And welcome to an ongoing series on Association Strong, which is a series of webinars that CIPE is offering for associations to take us through this crisis. If we thought, here in the United States, if we thought that the pandemic was the only thing that we needed to worry about, most recently we've been dealing with riots in the streets and police brutality as it relates to George Floyd. And it really signifies an ongoing problem in the United States, but it is one that, you know, has affected all of us. And it's sort of, for me, it's very personal. And I'm deeply concerned about, you know, the fate of my country here in the United States and what it means for all of us. So I just wanted to acknowledge that as we started this webinar. We have Carmen Stanila today. She is an association expert, has worked with CIPE for many years, primarily focused in the Balkans, but she's also worked extensively across Africa, supporting a lot of our partners in association management. And we invite her here today to specifically focus on what I think is a critical issue for everyone, which is raising revenues for associations during this pandemic. Again, we're truly honored to have Carmen. I've seen her train. I've been lucky and fortunate enough to co-facilitate with her. And I'm always jealous because she always gets better recognition or more positive responses than I do. But again, welcome, Carmen. I also want to remind everybody that, you know, we will be happy to share copies of this presentation and other resources. You can most definitely go to our webpage at CIPE to get a series of resources for associations. And we are here to assist you in any way that we can. Carmen, thank you. I'll let you start off.
Thank you, Lars. Good afternoon or good morning, everybody, depending on where you are tuning in from today. It's a pleasure to facilitate this webinar, and thank you very much to CIPE Africa for the invitation, and thank you to Lars for the warm introduction. Indeed, we have had the opportunity, I have had the opportunity to facilitate together with Lars several sessions in Africa, and it's been a great experience, and I hope the same will be today for all of us, and I look forward to a lively and hopefully fruitful conversation about revenue, how to generate revenue as an association during this current crisis and afterwards. Let's go. Thank you, Michael. Okay, so since March, when the COVID-19 came to our regions and to the continent, we have seen various organizations, very private sector associations taking a leading role to assist the governments of their countries during the medical crisis, to mobilize resources, to provide policy recommendations and speak on behalf of their members and the private sector in general about what is needed, what businesses need during the current crisis. We have also seen associations acting as conduits for relief efforts, helping retailers, raising funds or helping channel the funds towards the areas that most needed them. We have also seen associations provide information to members, to non-members, to various stakeholders, information about businesses, information about what is going on in their sectors, translating the policy, the new policies and regulations into information that businesses um, could assimilate, um, being there for their members with all types of information as they are faring through the current situation. And last but not least, certainly developing new services in response to the new needs that have come to the surface in the current situation. And as I said, we have seen associations from all over the world doing this, doing these kinds of actions and providing these types of response. I have selected a few examples that I find very relevant for our conversation today. If we can go to the next slide, please, Michael. We have, I see that we have today participants from Kenya. So the first example that I would like to share is from the Kenya Association of Manufacturers. They have put together a series of recommendations for the government to mitigate the impact of the coronavirus epidemic on the economy. And actually they moved very quickly, which was very it was fantastic, and the result of their engagement has been some policies that were adopted or modified in order to better address the needs of the business and of the community. So kudos to the Kenya Association of Manufacturers. Another example from Kenya is from the Kenya Private Sector Alliance, which is another CIPE long-term partner. One of the many things that they did was to develop a portal with information that businesses can access related to various aspects that businesses need to know about how to handle the crisis. And what I also liked very much was the helpline. They set up a line where companies can call to inquire about various aspects of information, regulations, anything that is relevant to businesses to operate or to resume operations when it is safe to do so. A lot of associations, probably many of the organizations that are here today with us in this webinar have done the same. They have organized a lot of online meetings, webinars, roundtable discussions around very topical issues. And one such example comes from Nigeria, from the American Business Council. They have organized a number of online discussions, and one of them was about the implementation of the Africa Continental Free Trade Agreement, how to move forward with that once the crisis subsides. Finally, another example, and again, this is something that we have seen in many associations. This is just one example. The Zimbabwe Chamber of Informal Economy Association, which is another CIPE partner, they have put together guidelines for their members who are informal traders on how to stay healthy, how to stay safe during the pandemic, with a very simple and clear recommendations on how to avoid getting infected when they go about their business. If we can go to the next one, please. So if we think about what has changed in terms of associations, what was the impact of the current pandemic on associations, we have seen an impact on staff, with organizations having to work from home many times, with restrictions on freedom of movement that have been imposed by governments in very, very many countries. Then many operations moved online, and people started to work remotely because it was not allowed to go out. We have seen disruptions in terms of operations, and we have always also seen an impact on the finances of the organizations, whether we are talking about membership fees, members having been hit, and some of them with the need to suspend operations or to diminish significantly the level of their operations, impact on fees for services, impact on sponsorships, events being canceled. Since March, basically all events have been either canceled or moved online. Impact on income from advertising and other types of streams of revenue for organizations. Let's do a quick poll. Michael, can you please put up the first questions? Please, let's take a moment and answer the questions on the screen. The first one is about reserve funds. If your organization has had any reserve funds at the beginning of the pandemic. All right. So no reserve funds, and some reserve funds. All right. And you expect a significant decrease in your revenues, in your association revenues for the year. Okay. All right. For the organizations who responded that they did have reserve funds, I would like to ask you a follow-up question. Could you please share with us in the chat room, for how many months were costs covered from your reserve funds, or how many months can you cover with your reserve funds? Thank you very much for the answers. One month. All right. Thank you, Beatrice. 3 months, Antoinette. Thank you. 1 year. Great. Thank you. Excellent. So there was a research study conducted in the US several years ago by a couple of organizations. One of them was Urban Institute, among nonprofit organizations, and one of the questions focused on what is the level of their reserve funds. And one one of the findings, one of the conclusions of that research was that organizations, associations, non-profit organizations that have at least 3 months of reserve funds, operational reserves, are in better position to weather through crises and to continue at the maximum level of operations. If for organizations that have less than 3 months of reserves, then their capacity, their position, their financial position is more vulnerable, and they are let's say less prepared to fare through crises. One of the things that the reserves, the reserve funds, or the operational reserves, however you call them, can entail is an impact on organizational sustainability. And this is one of the topics that we are going to talk about today. I also note that most of almost half of the participants, half of your organizations expect to lose more than half of their revenue this year. So hopefully you can take away some ideas and some examples from today's conversation that you can maybe discuss with your leaders, with your board, and hopefully implement in your organizations. Thank you for sharing your organization's situation. So talking about sustainability, we can look at sustainability from various angles. I would like to propose a model which was described by an association expert by the name of Mark McCord, whom I have had the pleasure to work at the beginning of my association experience and career. And when talking about sustainability, the approach of Mark's approach starts with governance. In order to be able to talk about the sustainable association, the first element or the first set of elements has to do with the governance. How is the organization governed? And here we talk about many ingredients, as we all know, of governance for associations. We talk about effective bylaws. We talk about clear election procedures. We talk about a strategic planning process and a strategic plan. We talk about rules for our conduct among ourselves in the organization, but also in relation with various other stakeholders the association interacts with. And here we are talking about code of ethics or a code of conduct, and I know many organizations have such a document. So all these elements can contribute to the association being an example of governance. One thing that I would like to note here, when we engage as private sector representatives in dialogue with public authorities on various issues relevant for our members, on various policies, we expect and we ask the counterparts, the decision makers, to be transparent, to be accountable, to communicate with us, to be open. And my invitation is, let's start with us. Let's start with our organizations. Before we ask them for accountability, for transparency, let's practice these principles. Let's practice these elements in our organizations, because these are elements that contribute to good governance and ultimately contribute to an organization being sustainable. We talk about membership today a lot. So one of the elements of good governance is also being inclusive and being open to our members. So let's practice this more often in our organizations. Another element, in addition to governance, that contributes to an organization being sustainable or not so sustainable are its programs and services. How are those programs and services? Have we developed them based on needs, or is it something that we can provide, and then why not? Let's do it. Let's provide them. How much member input was there when we decided to offer them? To what extent are they aligned, in tune with what our members need? How visible are we as an organization? How much we communicate to our members, to the business community, to our interlocutors in the public sector, to the decision makers, to all those stakeholders that an association usually interacts with on a regular basis. How much are we out there in the public sphere, in the public eye? How visible are we? How many people, members and non-members, know about our programs, know about our organization? If I come, hopefully once the travel restrictions are lifted, if I come to your community and I ask for directions, would people know where the Chamber of Commerce is? Would people know where the Association of Manufacturers is? Would people know where the Association of SMEs is? Sometimes when you ask for direction, you have surprises. People don't know. How visible are you in the community? How visible is your sign on the building? Will people passing on the street be able to tell that this is where your association has its office? And of course, now with travel restrictions, not many people pass in the street. But before the restrictions and afterwards, are we visible? Are we out there? Do we tell the world about what we are doing? How credible are we? Credibility comes from doing what you said you would do and doing it well. How credible are we? Will people listen? Will people trust us? Will they come for our advice, for our ideas, for our support? When organizations have good systems in place, they have a sound base, sound governance processes and procedures and rules. When you have programs that are demand driven, when you have actions that people know about, when you get noticed, when what you do gets noticed, when you are credible, you are believable, then what are the chances towards sustainability? Your organization is probably on the path. It's not guaranteed, but chances are greater that you are being an organization on the path to sustainability. One other approach to sustainability, which I think is relevant, especially for our conversation today, looks at three different elements. One of them is the sustainability of the association as a whole. And here again, we talk about processes, structures in place, relations, internal organization. We talk about financial sustainability, which is the main topic for our webinar today. And we talk about programs. When developing a new program, how many times do we think about its sustainability? Do we have the resources? Do we have the capacity to provide it for a while? If you are writing, and I'm sure many of you have written at least one project proposal to a donor organization, one of the elements that you get a point on is sustainability. The donor wants to know to what extent what you plan to do, what you propose to do, has chances to continue after the funding is drying out. So the project application sometimes forces us to think about sustainability, but I think it's a matter of looking at how sustainable a program or a service is, donor or no donor. We are doing it for our internal purpose, for our to be in a better in a better situation to make a decision whether that particular idea is worth putting into practice, and we also have what it takes to offer it for a while. Let's go to the next one, please. Thank you. When we talk about sustainability, and especially financial sustainability, probably the most important, if not one of the most important, if not the most important element, is to think about income diversification. How many sources of income do we have as an organization? Of course, various organizations have various strategies, and there is a continuum with some organizations deriving 90% of their income from dues, with other organizations deriving 90% of their income from donors, and with other organizations having a more diverse range of income sources. And I'm going to use an expression which is not academic, but I think it summarizes well the idea. We don't want to put all our bets on only one option, or, as we say in my language, in Romanian, to put all our eggs in one basket. This is risky. It's a risky strategy. So for sustainability purposes, income diversification is crucial. And here are some of the examples of income sources that I'm sure your organizations are relying on. Of course, the first one is or should be the dues, and then your fees for services. Another major income source for many associations can be events, all kinds of events. It can be conferences, trainings, fundraising events, exhibitions, expos. Then we have another major source for some organizations in the form of grants and contracts with the national or local government, but also with international donors and sometimes private foundations also offer grants for various programs. Then hopefully donations and sponsorships. And I think this is a bit tricky, especially in these times when companies and individuals alike have been affected. I am hoping we can come back to this in the second webinar and discuss some strategies on how to engage with potential or current sponsors and donors. And then we have what I call the indirect funding sources. And here I included advertising, affinity programs, partnerships, and sales of various products that some associations are offering. Can we go to the next slide? So ideally, best practices recommend diverse portfolio. One thing that I would like to say about myself is, I don't know about you, but I like desserts a lot, cakes. That's my favorite part of the meal. So when I think about the various revenue streams of an association, I like to think about a big birthday cake. How many slices does your cake, your organization cake, have? How many sources of income? How many streams? Ideally, this is where you should be, or this is something to work towards, having many or a majority of your income from membership fees and events, but then also other sources. And let me just stop for a moment and talk about affinity programs, so that we are all on the same page about affinity programs. These are business partnerships where the association or the chamber signs a contract with a provider of service or a product, and the members of the association have access to that particular product or service at a special rate. And let me give you an example from UNAQUA, which is CIPE's partner, long-term partner in Senegal. UNAQUA stands for Union of Small Entrepreneurs and Traders. And this union has a contract with Emirates, with the airlines, and the UNAQUA members get the following benefits. They can, since many of them are traders and they travel, or they used to travel until the coronavirus. They used to travel to Dubai a lot and to China for business purposes. So based on the UNAQUA agreement with Emirates, UNAQUA members would get 10 kilos of extra luggage for free when coming back from Dubai or from China to Senegal. And they also get a discount on the price of the ticket. And this was a major saving and a major benefit for UNAQUA members, because the saving they got was in the amount of 55,000 CFA, and the membership fee in UNAQUA is 25,000. So just by being a member, they got a major discount, which basically covered their membership fee. So this has worked out very well for UNAQUA members. And of course, when you have a large number of members, your capacity to negotiate as a chamber or as an association is greater. I have seen this kind of affinity programs also working with the gas stations, especially if there is a chain of gas stations that has several units across the country. I have seen this with mobile phone operators. So associations are finding various partners and providing benefit to the members. Next, please. So talking about membership and membership benefits and membership fees, dues. One thing that I keep saying whenever I facilitate workshops or recently webinars for associations is, let us all remember why the association exists in the first place. And the number one reason is to serve its members, right? The members are the reason why the association exists, and that's why we can. It's fair to keep to say that everything that the organization does should be with the members in mind. Now, in most, if not in the vast majority of countries, not in Europe, because in Europe the situation is different, membership is voluntary. So we have to convince the members first to join, to give them reasons to join, and then to give them reasons to stay. They can leave anytime. They are not required by any law to stay. So it's important first to think about and to learn what was their motivation for joining. Why are they there? Why did they decide to join? Is it because they needed access to your affinity program with Emirates, like in the case of UNAQUA that I just described? Is it because they need access to your trainings, whether in a face-to-face or online format? Is it because they want to build new skills? Is it because they want to be with an organization which can protect their rights? Is it that your association has such a reputation? Talking about the visibility that I mentioned earlier, it has such a great reputation that every business that would like to in town would like to be there, would like to join? Is it because they are friends with the current president or executive director of the association? Why are they there? Do we know? Do we understand their motivation? Once we know, once we understand, and it's okay for people to join for reputation, for a representation, because they need access to your affinity programs. Various people have various motivations, and it's okay. It's important to know, to understand their motivations, and to develop our offering so that they feel that at the end of the day, it was a good business decision to be in that association, in your association. So structure the offer in such a way that would meet as much as possible, because we cannot offer everything to everybody all the time, but at least as much as possible meet at least some of their expectations and some of their needs. Now, a quick question, if you can please answer in the chat window. Which one is more important for your organization? Membership recruitment or membership retention? Both. All right. Retention. All right. Thank you, Kili. Thank you, Angela. Retention. Thank you, David. Retention. Beatrice and Edith. Thank you. Okay. All right. 50-50 as a young association. Yes. Both. Retention. All right. Thank you. Well, yes, retention is very important, and it's more costly because what happens if we keep recruiting, then what? We keep recruiting, but people came there for a reason. They have an interest, and it's a legitimate interest. They are business people, you know. They want to get something for their money. The question is how to keep them engaged, how to keep them in the organization interested and involved, so that they would continue to be there next year and in the next years. So retention is very, very important. And retention starts from the day when you recruited the new members. That is the time to ask them what they need, what they want, to learn more about them, to see how you can involve them in a committee, in an activity, invite them to one of your events, maybe organize an event where you introduce the new members to the current ones. Whether this is possible right now only in an online format, or after the travel restrictions are lifted, it is possible to do this in the traditional face-to-face format. Getting members the appreciation first for joining, but also getting them the services, the visibility, the access that they need. Getting them to meet your current members, to meet their other members. They can host such an event at their premises, so that the other members can get to know them, have them meet existing members. Maybe they can start a collaboration, maybe they can start a partnership, or just networking. Retention starts as soon as a new member or new members joined. Okay, and of course there are several elements to consider here when we talk about membership and dues. In the last years, there was a decrease in the size, in the share of dues in the total budget of the associations. And from the same offer from everybody, same products and services and programs for all our members, we have seen a lot of transition towards a tiered due structure, where various members have access to various programs and services depending on their needs, and also depending on how much they are willing to pay. And of course, the challenge here is to make sure that your benefits are well adjusted to the various types of membership that you have. And here are some examples of membership benefits. They can be in the form of membership plaque, which is very tangible, but it can be also in the form of links to your website, links to the association Facebook account, invitations, hosting for a while their announcement or their logo on your web page, on the main page, on the home page of your organization. What I have seen a lot is on association websites, sections dedicated to members with password restricted access. That's a very clear and visible and tangible way of making your members feel special, providing them access to certain resources, certain publications, certain studies, and other services which are reserved for members only. These are some of the examples of membership benefits. Now, this tiered structure also has some let's say challenges. One of them is for the association, keeping track of what benefits are available to what member and who is using what. This is a bit tricky, especially if you have a large number of members. Oh, this member has access to that package of services, the other one has access to another package. So, keeping track who is entitled to what is a bit tricky. Another challenge that I have seen also in my country, in Romania, with a Chamber of Commerce that has introduced a tier membership. The chamber thought that this would be a great way to earn more money, and they transitioned to this system. What they found out after a few months is that most of their members were going for the basic package, and they were willing to pay a smaller amount of money. Of course, we need to also take into consideration the time when this was done. At the time when they made this change, the economy was not doing well. So companies that were under a certain financial stress prefer to go for the lower package than to pay more and have access to extra services. Of course, this is a strategic choice for each organization. Here, the leaders, the board, the leadership team has a decision to make, depending on various circumstances, depending on the state of the economy, depending on the profile of the members, of course, and what is their current economic situation. You need to analyze various factors before making such a move. Or if you have already the due structure, and to look at it, to analyze it and see where it is, how it is working for you. Where are most of your members? In what category? Are they in the gold category? Are they bronze? Are they corporate members? Are they individuals? And the point here is, of course, first of all, correlate the dues with what you are offering for each category. But also, very, very important, think about your costs and take into consideration your costs, because the tendency is to go for a low amount in dues to make it affordable, which is great. We want to be accessible. We want to be inclusive. The question is, how are we going to cover the cost? Who is paying the bill? If we go for a very low amount in terms of dues, how are we going to pay the bill at the end of the month? Who's paying for all the association expenses? Okay, and earlier we were talking about sustainability and about having as much as possible diverse streams of revenue. Of course, dues is one of them, but not the only one. But if our dues are very low and we are collecting only a small amount of money, how are we going to get money to cover everything? All our operational expenses and all our program expenses. And here we can look at this rough formula, which is just one of them. There may be many other approaches to setting your dues. dues divided per member should be the cost of your service divided per member multiplied by 2. And again, this is one way of looking at it. There are many others. The important thing to remember is that non-profit does not mean that at the end of the month or at the end of the year or your fiscal year, your association budget is 0 or in red. Non-profit simply means that whatever surplus you have at the end of the month and at the end of the fiscal year, you will not distribute to your founders. That's it. You have, as an association, or should have, or it's safe to have for your organizational sustainability purposes, it's safe to have a surplus. That's why we'll multiply by 2, because you need to have the capacity to cover costs and also retain some funds, earn some money. Okay, non-profit is not 0 earnings. It is money that keeps going into the organization to sustain operations, to sustain programs, and so on. Talking about members, I was mentioning earlier the idea of asking your members, understanding what they want, what they expect from the organization. This is very important. It's also important to be honest when you go and recruit, especially as Antoinette said, we are a young association. When you set out to recruit new members, be honest with your members or potential members about what you can and cannot do. When we promise the moon and the stars, and we cannot deliver the moon and the stars, of course there will be disappointment. And disappointment can translate into no membership renewal next year or next month. Let's be honest with ourselves first and also with our members. Associations have limited resources, especially in times like this. Let's be honest about what we can and cannot do for our members. I think it's fair to say we cannot provide, as an association, you cannot provide everything. Members have different needs. That is why there are many associations and many organizations out there to meet those different needs. For a certain number of needs related to their business interests, they come to your association. For others, maybe they go to a professional association, maybe they go to a women association, maybe they go to a different organization, or they don't go. But being honest about who you are and what you can provide is very, very important. Let's go to the next one. Now, dues revenue in the current times. What is the strategy? Can we please, Michael? Can we please pull the next question in our poll? Can you please take one moment and respond to the question that Michael has just posted? Great, thank you. So 38% of the participants of everybody who is in this webinar said that they have their association has raised membership fees since the beginning of the COVID-19 pandemic. This is excellent. I would like to ask a follow-up question. If among the persons who responded yes, if anybody would be willing to share with us in one sentence how this worked for you? Is anyone willing to tell us how this worked for their organization? All right.
And you can put it in the chat or use the raise your hand feature if you want to speak.
Jeff
All right,
first.
John. We have John Mate. John, did you want to speak?
Yes.
I think you have to unmute your mic.
Can everybody hear me?
Yes, John.
Yes, we can. Yes, please.
Thank you. So this is John from Embu, Kenya.
Hello, John.
Yes.
Yes. So, what was your organization's experience with the membership fee?
Yes. Immediately after COVID-19 setting, we experienced that there was a lockdown of movements of goods and people from other areas into Nairobi and Mombasa, where people usually take our goods. So we designed a letter that we would recommend people, especially those are in agribusiness and those that are going for trade materials from the city. And so we would write them a letter asking the security people on the roads to allow our people to go for materials from Nairobi, and then those that are have done farm produce to be also be allowed to take their produce to Nairobi. That way, we told everybody that needed that letter to come to our office, and when we are writing the letter, either if somebody has not been a member, you register as a member, and if you have been a member, you have not renewed, you would renew so that you continue with the business. And we have seen it working to some extent in our organization.
Great, thank you, John. So basically, like other organizations, you tied membership fees with access to a specific service which businesses need during the crisis. We also have a few other contributions. Angela says that we began training programs targeted at post-COVID solutions. Absolutely. So you help the members go through this current situation, navigate through the current situation. And Lucy says we tied an extra service to membership fee, just like the example that we have heard from John. And then David says that so far ordinary members have responded well, except for student and corporate members. Antoinette says we introduced a newsletter, which we didn't have before, plus webinars. Excellent. This is great. And Beatrice tells us about adjusting the rates. Yes, and Jeffers, did you have something that you wanted to share with us? Jeffers?
Yes.
Please.
Okay, thanks for allowing me to speak. My name is Jeffers Miruka. I'm the CEO of the African Association of Agricultural Economics. And also I'm the president of the African Society of Association Executives. So I am I'm well-rounded in associations, and
Okay.
to speak about my association, the African Association of Agricultural Economics, we've had members actually saying that one thing they do not want to see is to see the association not living up to its object or activities and programs during this difficult time. So some of them who are due for renewing their membership have taken it upon themselves to ensure that they continue with the subscription and renewing their membership to ensure that some of our programs continue, and that goes to support some of our staff salaries, some of our utility payments. So most of them are really done it and say this is really the time that as members of an association should stand out and be counted, and like just taking a back seat and saying let's wait and see how this goes. But also speaking from the African perspective, on the other from the African Society of Association Executives, we do know that some of our members obviously are not paying their dues to the associations because of the challenges of COVID, but we also have other avenues that our members are coming up with. I have had somebody saying in webinars, we're also trying to see how we monetize webinars and make sure that people can actually, because you know, webinar is something you can record and continue playing it. So people are seeing that that is something worthy, maybe paying for. So there are a couple of ways, and I tell you that from my perspective, we have ups and downs, and I always like looking at the ups. Post-COVID, we'll have a story to tell, but I think this is the moment that we're trying to make sure that our members feel more closer and feel more involved in our activities. Thank you.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you very much, Jeffers, for sharing your association's experiences with membership. Indeed, this is a time where not only the association is doing all the things that you are doing, you know, to support members, to represent them, to provide information, advice, to help navigate the changes in regulations, and so on and so forth. This is also a time when they can show their support. The association needs them as much as they need what the association is providing. That's an excellent example. Thank you. And John says, we offered to educate the community on public health protocols for COVID-19 and offered masks, sanitizers, and soap. And in return, free. And in return, members, some of the members paid dues. Excellent. Great. So for the organizations that have not sent membership renewal invoices yet, here are some strategies. One of them that I saw, including in associations in the US, was extend the deadline for paying. We understand that members are, some of them are having a hard time, so we simply extend the deadline. Instead of giving them, I don't know, a few weeks, we give them more time. Another strategy that we have seen, and Beatrice also mentioned, adjusting the rates down. Offering membership renewal for a lower rate than usual. Another strategy is to offer, especially if it's a bigger amount of money, to offer the possibility that members pay in several installments, in smaller tranches, to make it easier for them to pay. Or another strategy that I have seen is, you know, offering a lower rate for early upfront payment. Let's say your membership fee is due in 6 months, but since the organization needs revenue now, it can offer a discounted rate for those who pay for the entire year. These are all options that can work. I think the most important thing to keep in mind is at this time, flexibility is needed, because the various members have various situations situations, they go through this crisis in its own way. So it's important to acknowledge their situation. And again, if you have not sent the invoice yet, the question is, what do you write in the message that accompanies the invoice? One other option that I saw, I have a friend who works in a chamber of commerce in Montgomery, Alabama, in the south of the US. And he was telling me that his chamber decided to, for a while, to not send any membership renewal invoices until the people can go back to, businesses can go back to operations, and they are in a better position to pay. So for a while, no membership fees and no invoice for that. If you do decide, if you do decide to ask members to renew their membership, one message that you can give can be around the following. We know that in the current situation, you may have been hurt, your business may have been hurt. So have we. If you are able, please renew your membership, please pay. If you can't, we will wait. This message says several things. It says that you understand what they are going through. It says that you are going also as a chamber or as an association through some challenges, through some hardships. And whatever, if they pay, as we heard from the examples that John and Jeffers shared earlier, if they pay, this will be a support for the association also. But at the same time, if they cannot pay for now, you are not going to expel them. You give them time to recover, and you are still there for them, because they need, in such times like these ones, associations need more support. They need the chambers or the associations more than they would usually need. Let's look at a few examples, and then we'll stop for Q&A. Is that all right? Yeah? Are you okay with that? Okay, so talking about raising revenue during the crisis. An example very similar to what we have just heard earlier about arising needs and arising opportunities. This is an example from a CIPE partner in Sri Lanka. It's a women chamber of industry, and their members are women entrepreneurs. Since the crisis hit Sri Lanka, the government put together a number of assistance packages and schemes for various categories of people and businesses who have been affected. And the number of documents that those who want to access these support schemes need to fill in is rather significant, and everybody does not know exactly how to fill in those forms. So what happened is the Women Chamber of Industry of Sri Lanka said, for our members, we are going to provide this support, this assistance to fill in those forms for free. Of course, word of mouth is the best marketing tool. So people talk. So what happened is that a lot of women entrepreneurs who were not members of the association, of the chamber, started to express interest, and they became members of the chamber because they needed that particular service. Exactly like in the example we heard earlier from John. So the association was not seeking to recruit members, but members came because what the chamber was offering was very valuable and needed at this point. Another example that I would like to mention is from another country far away. It's called Georgia, Tbilisi, Georgia, in the Caucasus. And we have the CIPE has had a program, a mentorship program for a number of associations in Georgia. I am one of the mentors who are participating in this, together with our guest Susan Sarfati. Hello, Susan. And one of the organizations I've been mentoring is the Georgian Retailers Association. Then what we saw was the number of members of the Retailers Association doubled since the start of the crisis, because the association offered gloves and sanitizers and face masks to their members, small shops. They also offered information about the new regulations in place, and they offered a place where members could get could express their concerns, voice their interests and concerns. With this, I would like to open the floor for questions and answers. Hopefully, let's hear from you. What are your organization's experiences? How are you doing? What are some of the good things that you are experiencing? What are some of the challenges that you are seeing?
Great, and yeah, you can, if you have questions or comments, you can put them in the chat, you can put them in the Q&A, or you can raise your hand. And it looks like we have another question from Jeffers.
Yes.
Jeffers, are you there?
Yes, I am.
Please.
Hi.
Thanks so much, Carmen, for that wonderful presentation. Indeed, the issue of financing associations is one of the pain points that people who run associations have to deal with on a daily basis, or maybe in their career. And there is a lot of debate and discussion about really how associations can be sustainable financially. And when you ask the question about if there was any associations who had some reserve funds to sustain them, and I was one of the people who mentioned that actually we have a reserve fund, which is an annual reserve fund, which can take our association for the next
Excellent.
1 year. For
Excellent.
the next 1. So I also wanted to, if you allow me just 1 minute, I also wanted to say that, you know, fundraising for associations, and this is something I always speak about in many forums that I'm invited, fundraising for associations also does not necessarily mean that you must bring in funds, or maybe you must have somebody give you money. But you need also to know that there are especially technology tools which are actually are normally proprietary, because you have to pay to use them in an ordinary situation. But you do realize that they are normally given out almost for free for non-profit organizations, including associations. And if you utilize those technology tools, they can save you a lot of money. If they save you $5,000 a year, that is like your fundraised for your association. And what I have in mind, and I always talk about, is if you look for something like Google for non-profits, I tell people to really explore the world of Google for non-profits, which is really gives you fantastic technology tools, which can help you, especially in terms of emails for non-profits. You know, we have ad grants for non-profits. We have YouTube for non-profit. We have Google Earth and Maps for non-profit. And also, if you look at Salesforce, you know, we normally spend a lot of money on CRMs for our associations. And if you actually explore Salesforce, they have they have Salesforce for non-profits. If you apply and you actually qualify, it's like they give you a free CRM to manage your membership.
CRM
So,
is in customer relation
yes,
management.
yes,
You mean
exactly.
a software?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So that always, normally the CRMs are very expensive, but if you capitalize on that, you can highly benefit and it can save you a lot of money. If you look at Amazon Web Services, they have also a product called Amazon Web Services for non-profits and NGOs. Obviously, every association has a website, and sometimes we pay a lot of money to host our websites. So if you qualify for Amazon Web Services for non-profits, then they give you free hosting of your association websites and association portals, whatever, and that can save you a lot of money. Equally, Facebook has tools for non-profits. So cumulatively, if you look at those in a more detailed way, and if you have somebody who you can actually engage, do a lot of research and help you to set up some of those technology tools, they can save you a lot of money, and which means the money which you normally budget annually to spend on technology, you might realize if you budget for $5,000, you end up spending none, and $5,000 to your association is a lot of money to help you on other programs and activities. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jeffers. Thank you very much. Yes, indeed, lots of technology tools can help us to both navigate through the current times, but also to improve or to streamline the way operations are conducted. And thank you for the examples that you gave. I would like to mention just one other example, building on what you just said, and also tying it back to what I was saying earlier regarding benefits and members. What if you have a tiered membership structure, who gets access to what benefits? One of the very very critical elements, I think, for associations is their database. What kind of database, membership database do you have? There are a number of software tools, a number of options which are available, some of them for free, some of them are accessible for for relatively small amounts of money. And a database, a complex database with various features can be especially helpful when you navigate your membership. When you navigate your membership and you are preparing your invoice for for renewal. We also have another example, another question I see in the chat box.
Yeah, from Brunilda. I can read that one out.
Yes, please, Michael.
She asks, considering the crisis, admitting the uncertain and turbulent future, and building on your presentation, do you think that business associations need to change and innovate their business model and the way they operate? It's a good question. Thank you, Brunilda.
Thank you, Bruna. Thank you very much for the question. Yeah, I think the current situation shows us that we all need to change, associations and organizations included. I think in the end, one of the things that I think needs to change is how we communicate. How we communicate to members, how we communicate to stakeholders. I think this current situation has shown us that members need the association more than ever. So more frequent communication with members is definitely one of the things that are welcome in this time. I also think that this is a good time to go back to the basics, go back to those elements that I listed in the sustainability pyramid that I borrowed from Mark McCord. Good governance matters. services and programs and products that are responding to the new members' needs, to the emerging needs are important. So yes, I think there are some changes needed to give a short answer to a complex question. Thank you.
Great. We just had a another question come in.
Yes.
I'm looking for the question. Thank you for writing, whoever just wrote in. And if you had a question, if you want to ask that, you can write that in as well. But thank you for sharing that with us.
Yes, so retaining members can be, yes, it can be tedious, absolutely. And, you know, various members join for various reasons, as I was saying, it's okay. And our goal is, as much as possible, to retain them. But we can only do so when we go back to them and we talk about what they need, what they want, how we can, to what extent we can respond to those needs. And some of them, yes, they may send apologies for not being able to pay yet. Yeah, and that's why I was in my message, in my example of message earlier, I was saying that if they can pay now, that's great. If they cannot, then you will wait. Now, how long are you going to wait as an association for your members to pay? This is something that is up to each organization's strategy. This is something that you can decide. You know, do we want to wait for 3 months? Do we want to wait for 6 months? Do we want to wait for how long? You know.
Do we have any more questions or any more comments? Okay, well, we can certainly pause if somebody does, but I absolutely want to say thank you, Carmen, for joining us today, and thank you for sharing. And it seems as though we still have a lot to discuss, and fortunately we have like more webinars to do that. So for everyone here, it seems as though June 17th, Carmen will be back with us presenting part 2 of this series, and we would love for you to join on that and continue bringing your questions and ideas to share. If you have any questions following this webinar, you can email them to africa@cipe.org, and we can bring in Carmen's expertise on those as well. And then the recording of this webinar will be available on the CIPE website soon. We did have a question come in, and we can answer this. It's, how do we compensate members for article writing, Carmen?
Huh, that's an interesting question. What do you mean compensate them? You mean you give them you want to give them an amount of money for writing an article for you? I think it depends on what you have in mind. If it's a big study or an article, I think you can compensate them first of all by giving them visibility, giving them a platform, like a respectable organization, a well-known organization in your community, and not only, and beyond. You give them a platform for them to present their views, to present their research or their findings or whatever the object of the article is. I think that's the first compensation. You can promote that. You can promote the article. You can distribute it in your network. You can highlight it. You know, if it's a bigger study, research, whatever document, then you can highlight it in publicly in a webinar, or in next time when you can organize a face-to-face event. I would say that those are types of compensation, non-monetary, but very, very significant.
Great.
Thank you very much for the questions. Thank you for the comments. Thank you very much to the CIPE Africa team, especially to Lars and Michael for the invitation, and Michael for your help throughout and before the webinar. And I look forward to the next one. Lars?
Thank you, Carmen. It was great webinar, and we look forward to hearing from you in 2 weeks, where you will be focusing a lot on fee-for-services, and specifically coming up with examples also from Africa and other parts of the world. I also want to mention here that CIPE is running a competition. We invite all of you to participate in this competition. It is focused on really innovations that associations are and best practices that you're undertaking during this COVID time. So please send us your ideas and what you're implementing with regards to generating revenues for your association, about leadership and governance, advocating for government policies, how you're helping business as we're going to go through reopening stages as a result of COVID. Also, we're interested in hearing about innovative methods of communications with the government, members, and stakeholders. And finally, how are you mobilizing the business community to help during this pandemic? All submissions need to be sent by June 12th to africa@cipe.org. We ask that those submitting a submission, they give a description of their activities and also any results or outcomes achieved. Again, the competition will end on June 12th, and there will be awards of $1,000 in terms of honorariums for the best examples that are provided. And we will also feature you in different CIPE channels, including the Association Innovations newsletter that we're sending out weekly to association executives and donors and others in Africa and around the world. So again, we welcome all of you to please send us your best submissions with regards to the competition. We also invite you to sign up for our newsletter. And we will be having Carmen back in 2 weeks. Next week, we will be having our expert communications consultant, Grace Nzu from Kenya, who will be really talking about surveys and how do you not only survey your members, but how do you communicate the information that they are providing you. And speaking of surveys, CIPE will be, you'll probably be receiving a survey from us within the next 24 hours, where we are trying to collect information about how African associations are doing during this pandemic. And we will be sharing that information again through the newsletter, but also in these very important webinars that we have. So everyone, please have a great afternoon and evening based on where you're at. And we're greatly appreciative, Carmen, for your participation. And of course, all of the hard work that Michael and others have done in terms of setting this up. So again, thanks to everyone. I hope you have a great day. Bye.
Goodbye.